So a few months ago, a guy we all knew, in front of quite a few people, drove his car off there just to the right of the bridge, and he went in the water, and then he rolled down the windows and sat in the car, and it sunk to the bottom. The river was much higher. You can kind of see where its high point is. And he stayed in the car, and he committed suicide by drowning. He'd had 5 or 6 DWIs, and he had gotten his license back somehow. And a few days before his suicide, he got his 7th DWI. And I guess it was just too much for him to bear. And of course, he was an alcoholic. He was my baseball coach as a young guy. And he was a pretty regular face at the local bars. I won't say his name because he was the father of a couple of my friends. But very sad and tragic. This bridge, this used to be the Salisbury covered bridge. It burned down 3 or 4 years ago. Unknown cause, but it was a beautiful covered bridge. They had just done a massive restoration. And on one hot summer day, it caught on fire, and it was like a sideways chimney and dry as a bone, and it went up in flames, and the entire bridge was destroyed, and it kind of fell into the water. This river connects Cornwall, Vermont with Salisbury, Vermont. I grew up fishing here. I spent a lot of time right over there on those banks catching fish and having fires. And a lot of time alone, a lot of time with friends. We use this river to get to our hunting grounds, and it's just been a big part of my life. My father's house is half a mile that away. And 3 or 4 years ago, in the winter time, the police found a burned out car parked right about where my truck is. And, they just thought it was arson or someone trying to claim insurance. So they came and picked the car up and towed it away. And a couple months later, found out the car belonged to a missing woman from New Jersey. And then realized that was probably a crime scene, and they didn't treat it as such. So any evidence at that point would be gone. And they dove in this river in the middle of winter and tried to find her body. It wasn't here, but they eventually found her about 15 miles to the south, decomposed on the side of a road, on the side of Brandon Gap. And her murder was never solved. There's speculation that there was a guy that did it that owed her money, maybe drew her here on the premise that he was going to pay her and buy some more drugs, and likely killed her and took her drugs, and then loaded her body, burned the car, and took her up to Brandon Gap and dumped her on the side of the road. She was from New Jersey, kind of a known drug trafficker. Yep, so a lot goes on here. I hit this bridge with a 3-wheeler when I was 14, pretty injured. What else? Well, that's about it. That's enough, isn't it? Anyway, that's Salisbury, Vermont, Cornwall, Vermont, a little bit of history. These are known as the Salisbury Flats over here. Big, huge flat. It's probably 2 miles of nothing but flat clay. Glacier came through and carved out those mountains, which are the Green Mountains, and on this side is the Adirondack Mountains. And between here and the Adirondack Mountains is Lake Champlain. This is Otter Creek. Runs the wrong way. It runs north, and it dumps eventually into Lake Champlain. So, and then Lake Champlain dumps into the Hudson River, which dumps into the bay in New York City. So this river, if you could get over the waterfalls, you could go to New York City from here. But you can't because of the waterfalls and dams along the river. But once you get up past the Vergennes waterfalls, then you could go into Lake Champlain, take Lake Champlain down south, get into the Hudson, and then eventually off into the ocean. Very cool. Cornwall, Vermont. Salisbury, Vermont.